Imagine if I told you that Iran, the modern nation we know today, plays a critical and central role in the Bible's grand narrative of prophecy and world events. When we think of the Bible, our minds often go straight to Israel, Egypt, or Babylon. However, Iran, known as Persia in biblical times, was far from just another empire. It was a nation specifically named in prophecies that would shape the destiny of God's chosen people. Iran's biblical origin story is fascinating and far more intricate than many realize. From the lineage of Noah to the reign of Cyrus the Great, Iran's history is interwoven with pivotal moments in biblical history. One of the most astonishing revelations is that God used Persia, a nation ruled by pagan kings, to deliver Israel, rebuild the temple, and fulfill prophecies that had been spoken centuries before they came to pass. The origins of the Iranian people in the Bible. To understand Iran's biblical roots, we must return to the story of Noah and his descendants. After the great flood, Noah's three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, became the ancestors of all the nations of the earth. According to Genesis 10, one of Japheth's sons was Madai, who would later be recognized as the progenitor of the Medes. The Medes, closely associated with the Persians, settled in the region that is now modern-day Iran. From these two groups, the powerful Medo-Persian Empire would emerge. So, according to the Bible, the ancestors of the Iranians come from Japheth through Madai, linking the Iranian people to one of the oldest genealogies in the Bible. This connection sets the stage for their significant role in the unfolding of God's plans for Israel and the world. Persia's rise to power. Several centuries later, Persia rose to prominence as a mighty empire. Under the leadership of Cyrus the Great, the Medes and Persians formed an alliance and founded the Achaemenid Empire, also known as the First Persian Empire. At its height, the Persian Empire stretched from the Indus River to North Africa, encompassing many regions mentioned in the Bible, including Israel, Babylon, and Egypt. However, Persia's significance goes far beyond its military might. Its importance lies in the fact that God used it to fulfill his promises to the Israelites. When Babylon, under King Nebuchadnezzar, conquered Jerusalem in 586 BC, the Israelites were taken into captivity, and the temple was destroyed. They remained in Babylon for 70 years, as prophesied by Jeremiah. Then, in 539 BC, Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon, and with him came a dramatic change. Cyrus the Great, God's chosen instrument. The Bible records in the book of Ezra that Cyrus issued a decree allowing the Israelites to return to their land and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. Cyrus himself recognized his divine calling, declaring that the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem in Judah. Ezra 1:2. Astonishingly, the prophet Isaiah had named Cyrus over a century before his birth, referring to him as the one who would carry out God's will to restore Israel. Isaiah 44:28, 45:1. In one of the most remarkable moments in biblical history, Persia, a nation outside of God's covenant, became the instrument of God's redemption for his people. This event highlighted the central role Persia played in fulfilling God's divine plan. The legacy of Cyrus in prophecy. Cyrus the Great is a pivotal figure in biblical prophecy. In Isaiah 44:28, God refers to Cyrus by name 150 years before his birth, calling him my shepherd, who will fulfill God's purposes. Even more striking, in Isaiah 45:1, Cyrus is referred to as God's anointed, a title usually reserved for kings of Israel. How could a foreign, pagan king be called God's anointed? The answer lies in God's sovereignty. He can use anyone, even those outside his covenant, to accomplish his will. The decree of Cyrus that allowed the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple was not just a political move. It was the fulfillment of Jeremiah's prophecy that the Babylonian captivity would last 70 years. Cyrus's rise marked the end of this period, signaling a new chapter in the history of Israel. Persia in the book of Esther. Persia's role in the Bible doesn't end with Cyrus. The book of Esther provides another powerful example of how God used Persia to protect his people. During the reign of King Xerxes, also known as Ahasuerus, a plot was hatched by Haman, a high-ranking official in the Persian court, to exterminate the Jews living in the empire. Haman's hatred drove him to manipulate the king into issuing a decree for the annihilation of the Jewish people. However, through God's providence, Esther, a Jewish woman, had become queen of Persia. Encouraged by her uncle Mordecai, Esther risked her life by approaching the king, revealing her Jewish identity, and pleading for the survival of her people. Esther 4:14 highlights Mordecai's famous words to her. "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Esther's bold intervention led to the downfall of Haman and a new decree that allowed the Jews to defend themselves. This dramatic story is celebrated every year during the Jewish festival of Purim, a reminder of how God used Persia to protect his people. Persia's prophetic role in the end times. Persia's significance in biblical history doesn't end with the Old Testament. The Bible also places Persia at the heart of prophetic visions about the future. One of the most significant examples is found in the book of Daniel. Daniel, a Jewish prophet who served in both the Babylonian and Persian courts, received visions that revealed the rise and fall of empires, including Persia. In Daniel 2, King Nebuchadnezzar dreams of a great statue made of different materials, each representing a world empire. The chest and arms of silver represent the Medo-Persian Empire, which would succeed Babylon as the dominant power. Later, in Daniel 7, the prophet has a vision of 4 beasts, representing 4 successive empires. The second beast, a bear raised up on one side, symbolizes the dual nature of the Medo-Persian Empire. Another significant prophecy involving Persia is found in Daniel 8, where a ram with 2 horns, symbolizing the Medes and Persians, charges across the earth. This vision also foretells the eventual conquest of Persia by Greece under Alexander the Great. Persia in the New Testament, the Magi. Even after the fall of the Persian Empire, Persia's influence continued into the New Testament. One of the more mysterious connections is the story of the Magi, the wise men who visited the infant Jesus in Matthew 2. Many scholars believe the Magi were from Persia, possibly Zoroastrian priests skilled in astrology. Their journey to worship the newborn king of the Jews highlights Persia's enduring connection to the biblical narrative. Persia's role in end-time prophecy. As we consider the future, many theologians believe that Iran, known as Persia in biblical prophecy, will play a crucial role in the events of the end times. One of the most significant prophecies involving Persia is found in Ezekiel 38-39. These chapters describe a coalition of nations, including Persia, that will one day rise against Israel in a final battle known as the War of Gog and Magog. While the exact nature of this battle remains debated, it suggests that Iran's influence in the region will continue to be of spiritual significance. Persia's lasting legacy. The story of Persia in the Bible is one of the most remarkable examples of how God uses even the most unlikely nations to fulfill his divine purposes. From the lineage of Japheth and Madai to the rise of Cyrus the Great, Persia played a pivotal role in biblical history. From the restoration of Israel to the protection of the Jewish people during Esther's time. Persia's significance doesn't end with its historical role. The prophecies of Daniel, Isaiah, and Ezekiel remind us that Persia remains part of God's larger plan for the future. As we observe modern-day tensions between Iran and Israel, it is essential to approach these events with a biblical perspective. God's sovereignty over nations means that every kingdom, every empire, and every leader is part of his plan. The story of Persia is a testament to the fact that God can use any nation, no matter how unlikely, to bring about his ultimate plan for salvation and the redemption of his people.